Thank you for being with us today. My name is Russell Barr. This is my wife, Carol. And there are a few things that we'd like to accomplish in the next few minutes. One is when people find out that we're wanting to go to Paris, go to France as church planters, they ask us, why France? You know, why not somewhere else in the world, or why not just stay here? And I get that a lot. People say, well, you know, there are unsaved people in the United States. And I say, yeah, but there's also a church on every corner. And there's a much different atmosphere here. We're needed there more than we're needed here. And a lot of why France for us has to do with not just the location, but who Carol and I are. As a couple. We're both artists. I'm a potter. I'm also an illustrator, designer. I've been a graphic designer, freelancer for over 30 years. And Carol's a painter. And we've taught pottery, painting, and drawing for over a decade. And so we resonate with the culture there. It's a very art-focused culture. Mm-hmm. The real reason why we just became convinced that we needed to go to France was that in 2005 we were invited to a prayer conference in Paris. And we spent 10 days traveling around the outskirts of Paris, praying with church planters, people that were actually in the process of planting churches. And there's an old adage that says you have to be careful what you pray for, but in the process of those days, we discovered that there's something else going on, and that is that you absolutely have to be careful whom you pray with. Yeah. Those people, they didn't just make it into our prayers. They made it into our hearts. They made it into our minds. We can't get France out of our minds and out of our hearts. Those 10 days changed us forever. And a couple of the other things that we would like to cover today too. One is, you know, why France, but also why us? And Carol and I both will talk a little bit about that. But and then not only that, but why World Team? That's the name of the organization that we're going to be serving with in France and in Europe. And then lastly, that's why you're here, is why you. You know, what can you do? What can you do to help us? And actually, what can you do to help the situation in France?
Okay, yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about France and just the situation with the people there, who they are. First of all, there's less than 1% actually evangelical Christians, and people will say that they might be Catholic, or they're atheist, or they're Muslim, or nothing. Even the Catholic priests are despondent because the Catholic churches are empty. There's one priest for 28 parishes. And many times they're coming over and talking to the Protestants, who we work with, to say, hey, can we get together and pray with you guys? Yeah. So it's a pretty desperate situation there. And for those who do want to have an active church where people are that believe together, want to be together, have fellowship with one another and encourage one another, they have to drive 4 and 5 hours just to get to an active church. So many people have banded together, many denominations and non-denominations of churches, and they are now working together in all of France to say where they're going to put a church. We also know that there's only one church in 80,000 people. There's 8 to 10 million people in Paris.
And your idea of a church and the idea of a church in France are probably vastly different. A mega church in France is 200 people. When you talk about one church for every 80,000 people, that's usually about 20 to 50 people meeting in somebody's living room. First time we went to Paris, we visited a church, about 100 people, and they were meeting in a hotel room. And they've been a church over a decade. It's very difficult for French Christians to have property. There's a different reality there. When you say church, it means something totally different.